I'm just going to pivot slightly to a different topic, which I know is top of mind, probably of every single tech leader out there, and that is hiring. We've got 16 companies in the portfolio today, and every single board meeting over the last 6 months starts off with hiring top tier developers is becoming more difficult. And if you're a 10-man team looking to grow to 20 or 150 looking to grow to 400, and we've sort of got a variety between those two numbers, it's just a challenge. Everybody is doubling up. There's not enough people out there. And you must be feeling this in a real sort of meaningful way. So I'd say two questions here. The first is just like, what is your approach to this? And how do you overcome this global shortage? And then the second sort of hidden question there is it a global shortage? Are you finding sort of pockets around the globe where it's significantly easier? And does that sort of maybe affect what we said earlier about the structure of Atlassian?
Yeah. Jira, it's not just you, it's keeping me, if I could go back to your first question, what's keeping you up at night is, do we have enough people on the ground to solve the problems and, work towards the ambitions and the aspirations that we have? And the answer is no, never. But there are some things that we have done. There are some things that we have done to unblock some of the barriers in the system that we originally created. So many of you may know Atlassian recently shifted or introduced this idea of team anywhere. And what does that mean? Is we are no longer we are a remote first organization, and that's globally. So here's what that means. If you wanted to work for Atlassian in Australia, or for a team that's primarily used to be based out of Sydney, you'd probably have to move your family to Sydney or whatever it is, and for many individuals, that's just not tenable. So you would say no to their role. But imagine now you can say, hey, as long as I'm within these time zones and the core of the team is sitting in Sydney, but I'm within ±4 hours, ±6 hours, yeah, I can totally work for that team. Jada, let's forget about the numbers for a second. Can you imagine the reach that in the how wide we can reach now? That's, so we have fundamentally challenged the way people work, right? Challenging where people work. And what that's allowed us to do is really open up the funnel. And now we don't just look at folks in Sydney or San Francisco or Bengaluru. We're saying, hey, we're going to look for individuals for these set of teams within this region. So that was one thing that we did, is actually went from being location-based to now expanding that to being kind of region-based. And you can imagine how much of a funnel we were able to create. So that's one aspect that we looked at. Here's the next aspect that we looked at, and this is more of my favorite area. This is something I was able to drive in the organization. Is for many of you listening in, how often are you evaluating for how well an engineer is able to use the tools that you're using versus their ability to learn the tools that you're using? So here's what I mean by that. Let's just say today you are leveraging AWS, your code stack is in Java or Go or PHP. I know nobody wants to use PHP, but bear with me. Whatever language you're using. How often are you evaluating for the particular skills or the way that somebody is actually using the tools that you are versus their ability to learn and continue to adapt to the changing landscape? And that's what we did at Atlassian, Jira, a couple of years ago, is we said, we're no longer hiring Java engineers. From now on, we're going to hire engineers that can demonstrate their ability to solve problems, that can demonstrate their ability to learn new languages. They can demonstrate their ability to solve problems, solve unique problems. That allowed us to expand our reach into people we would have never thought about hiring. And that's working out amazingly well for us. But what we've had to do is that created kind of challenges internally is, you know what? Ramp up time of engineers coming in from the outside to Atlassian kind of went up. So there's nothing, it's not free. It's not a solution that doesn't come without its own set of challenges. But the problems that were created, the second and the third order problems that were created as a result of the solution that we put in, those were manageable problems. And now we have a really rigorous onboarding plan. Now we have a rigorous, L&D team that can help engineers ramp up on particular languages, particular technologies. Those are solvable. Those are far easier than sourcing candidates. So I would say those are the two things we've done is we've gone fully remote and we've changed the way we assess candidates.
First of all, that's fascinating. And it seems to be that there's a theme between both of them of widening your net so that there's a much larger pool of candidates. I'll get to the onboarding part, which you've alluded to with the second, but just to sort of pick up on the first one of talking to candidates under the same time zone or within a time zone frame, clearly expands your pool. I'm asking if there's not a drawback there and if you've started to feel that. So I'm asking if you have hired somebody who's 3 hours drive away from the main office. Sometimes it might even be a flight away, but in the same time zone. How is that playing out?
Honestly, the way that I think about scaling organizations is kind of in a pyramid. And you always start with the people. Then you think about the process that you're using or the process that are in place and the technologies that are there to enable the processes and the people. So going back to, this isn't a new framework. It's people, process, technologies. And one of the challenges that I'm seeing today is organizations are saying, hey, we have the people and the processes we're going to go remote, but they're not necessarily investing in the technologies. And you can imagine this is near and dear to my heart, being the engineering leader for an organization that ships collaboration software. And I'm not just talking about the Atlassian toolkit. I'm talking about simple things like Slack, things like Zoom, things like, as an example, there was a new app, and I have nothing to gain from promoting this company, but there was an app that was that spread like wildfire within the organization. It was called Clockwise, I think. And what this app did was it connected your Google Calendar to Slack, and it kind of told people when you were in a meeting. It just updated your Slack status by saying, hey, this person's in this meeting. And that was a signal to anybody that was live chatting with that individual that, hey, you can't synchronously communicate with Jira or Zach at the moment because he's actually in a meeting. And it's those small tools that actually enable you to adapt the remote work culture. And if you're not investing in the technology, what you end up doing is trying to recreate a lot of the physical rituals in a virtual environment. And that's not going to work. We know that's not going to work. That leads to burnout. We've tried it. It doesn't work. You fundamentally have to rethink the way you engage, collaborate, and work. So in saying that, I don't want to come off fully righteous and say, hey, remote work is for everybody. It's not. I think the reality of the world is going to be hybrid. There are individuals that need that sense of belonging. There are individuals that will want to be in the office every day. There are individuals that will that don't have the setup like we do in our homes at the moment. Those individuals will want to come in. So I think most organizations out there will have to create, hubs where people can come in and out, but give their employees the option. And I think the future of work is hybrid, for what it's worth.